Wilmington, Delaware, a city of roughly 71,000 people, all with a unique story to tell. WITN 22 presents a brand new show that shines a light on Wilmington's most extraordinary, everyday people.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the very first episode of Everyday People. I'm your host, India Sage, and I'm very excited to start the new year with the opportunity to meet such extraordinary people and tell their amazing stories right here in the Grand Opera House Theater. I know I'm not alone when it comes to making life changes. Amongst millions of Americans, the new year is a symbol of a fresh start or new life changes. And as for one of our guests coming on today, he's going to share his brave story about overcoming such trauma. At 19 years old, Roderick Buckworth and his mother Patricia narrowly survived a double homicide. Their neighbor, who was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, broke into their home and attempted to kill them both. They luckily survived. However, because of Roderick's quick thinking, he was able to protect his mom, save her life, and now is touted as a hometown hero. He took me back to the apartment complex where it all began and the moment where his life changed forever. Let's take a look.
It's not a stranger to me being here because, like when my days get low, I come back and I sit and I think about the event, whether if it's raining, sunny outside, and I just sit out here and just think about everything that happened. My mom moved me out of here from Wilmington when I was like 7, and ever since 5 years ago, this is where I've been at. So childhood here has been, it was great. We lived downstairs in the second door to the right. We lived in Fort Harley. I was actually sitting on the couch, so the way it was lined up, the door was on this side, the couch was also on this side. So I get a knock at the door, so I'm like, who is it? No answer. Okay. Get another knock at the door, who is it? No answer again. Okay. So then I get a kick at the door. The first kick, the door was off the hinges, and the second kick, he was in the house. Running to my mom's room, and I told her, I was like, look, Mom, call 911, he's shooting. She was like, who's shooting? I'm like, wait, who? Don't ask no questions like that, you just gotta call 911. But ran down the hallway, closed her door through the dresser in front of the door. He started shooting through the door. He shot my mom first. The bullet went in, out, and went back in. She has a bullet and 5 fragments in her leg, still to this day. The door was real flimsy to my mom's bedroom. So he got his hand in the top. He went to go aim for her again, but I had stepped in front of it, and that's when I got shot in my neck. So, the guy walks into the room. He was like, this is not real, this is a dream. He put the gun to his head and killed himself. Yeah. So we live right here. This was my bedroom window. I was my mom's bedroom window. When I go to schools and talk, they always ask me like, why didn't you just jump out your window and save yourself? Like what type of person would I be if I would have left my mom out here like that? She didn't know what was going on at all. Like I said, I was running down the hallway telling her to call 911, he's shooting. She would have popped out of her room, then what? So he lived right across the hall. So that Tuesday it was raining and thunderstorming. They had just upped his dosage from the VA. He had marijuana in the system, he had alcohol in the system. All that triggered. Being right here in this position, that brings me back to where we had to get up these steps. So we got up the steps, and the UPS guy was actually across the street. He was getting back in his truck and going to another stop. So we was actually yelling, we've been shot. Somebody called 911. UPS guy was right there. 2 teenagers was actually walking over here, and they actually came back. And I'm sitting here, I'm telling my mom, I'm like, Mom, I'm tired. Like, I'm tired, can I lay down? She was like, you can't lay down. You can't lay down, because she had the fear that I was gonna go. As soon as I laid down, it was over, because she knew I was gonna close my eyes. I was tired, I was so restless, man. Later I found out that the bullet from my neck was a centimeter away from my main artery in my neck. And centimeter, that's slight. That's real close. But I can't do nothing but thank God every day that I'm here.
Such an amazing story, but Roderick is not alone. Unfortunately, many families in Delaware have also experienced traumatic situations such as this. And out of the 71,000 people that live here, Roderick's story is just one of them. Help me welcome him now. He's sitting here with me, the young man who saved his mom's life, Roderick Buckworth.
How you doing?
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Well, I know that you like to be called Elrod.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that a little bit more later on
Right.
with your artistry and the work that you do. But I'm going to call you Elrod.
Okay. We can do
So, 6 years ago. It's really not that long ago.
that. Right.
And I really want people to get an understanding of who you were as this young 19-year-old man. You know, you were running track.
Yeah.
You were in college. Talk to us about who you were then.
And it's kind of, giving me the chills to talk about it because I never talked about my life before. So before getting shot, I was running track at Wesley College. I was taking up criminal justice and minor in psychology. I mean, I wanted to be a cop. I wanted to be a cop. Coming home then getting shot, I don't want to be a cop no more. I wanted to change my life around. So then I was still, trying to go back to school, trying to go back to college after the whole incident happened. I went back the semester right afterwards.
Wow.
And tried to do it, but I was having flashbacks in class.
Wow.
So they were two different people, two totally different people. And
Absolutely.
I kind of missed the old guy.
I'm sure you would. I mean, I can only imagine having one outlook on life before this incident, and then as soon as it happens, here we are.
Right.
So if you could, for those that do not remember or know the story, tell us a lot more about that day and what that looked like.
That day we were actually supposed to go to the studio. It was an event coming up. I was supposed to go to the studio, get some things done. But my mom came home. She was tired. It was raining that day. I remember that day. I was just being real lazy. I was being real lazy that day. So I laid on the couch. So then I hear 4 bangs. Sound like somebody was like, banging a hammer up against the wall. So my mom was like, Roderick. I was like, hey, it wasn't me. Like, I ain't do it. So then I hear that knock at the door. First knock. Who is it? Don't get no answer. Okay, well, normally I would just open up the door because of where we lived at. We didn't have no type trouble like that.
Right.
So then the second knock at the door, who is it? No answer. Okay, well, I'm definitely not getting up now because if it was one of my friends, they would have called. They would have eventually said their name. Then I get that kick at the door. The first kick, the door was off the hinges, and it caught me off guard. And the second kick, he was in the house.
And you were sitting here in this moment thinking what?
I didn't know what to think. Honestly, I just acted. My brain could not process what was going on. Only thing I know was the door was off the hinges, and I just seen this dark figure standing at the door, not knowing who he was, never seen him a day in my life.
Wow. And so now you are up, you're out of the couch, and you're doing what?
Before I got to my mom, I actually tripped over a footstool. But I thank God I tripped over that footstool because that saved my life. Later I found out that he was aiming for my head.
Wow.
Because of where the bullet hole was in the wall in the hallway. That's what he was aiming for.
Wow.
So tripping over that footstool saved my life.
Absolutely saved your life.
But at that moment in time, I was mad at myself for tripping over the footstool. I'm like, you're clumsy. Like, well, you're not clumsy. Why would you trip? Like,
little did you know that everything was happening for a reason.
Yeah. So I was able to get up. As I'm running down the hallway to my mom's room, Mom, call 911, he's shooting. She's like, who's shooting? It's not the time to be asking questions like that.
Right.
Call 911, he's shooting. So she called 911. I closed her door through the dresser in front of her door. At that time, I weighed like 155. My mom just did all her laundry. The dresser might have weighed 200 plus. So that just to show you the amount of adrenaline I had running to her room and throwing that dresser in front of the door. So I thought it was over. But then I hear that tugging at the door, that sound at the door. I'm like, okay, well, it's not over. So he started shooting through the door once he realized that he couldn't get in. So he shot my mom first.
Wow.
The bullet went in her leg and went in, out, and then went back in.
And you witnessed this happen.
Yeah.
What was running through your mind at that point?
At that point in time, when I actually thought it was fake. I thought it was fake up until my mom got shot, and she told me that she was been shot.
And she hit the ground.
That was the worst scene in my life. That was the worst vision that I ever wanted to see. Worst words in a combination of a sentence I ever wanted to hear my mom say.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, this is real. So I kept the dress in front of the door. But the door was, like I said, was flimsy. So he got his hand in the top, went to go aim for my mom again. I stepped in front of it, and that's when I got shot in my neck.
This is the moment that everyone talks about as far as you saving her life.
Right, right.
You jumping in front of now this bullet that's coming for her.
Right. When people say I jumped in front of it, they think like I'm diving in front of a bullet, like slow motion in the movies and everything. But I just seen where the gun was headed towards, and I just stepped over. That was the only right thing to do. I could never imagine my life without my mom.
Now, a lot of people asked you when this happened, why not jump out the first window of, your home? Why not save yourself?
Right.
And what was the reasoning behind that?
I could have got out the window if I wanted to, out of my bedroom window. I could have. But then my mom wouldn't know what was going on. The way it played out in my head, my mom wouldn't have been here. I'd have had to live with that every single day of my life, that I saved myself and did not save my mom. Because my thinking, men are protectors. I would rather go before my mom.
You're amazing. You're amazing. I mean, even in this moment, a lot of people, again, would have thought to save themselves.
Right.
And you said the first person that is most important to me right now is the woman that gave birth to me.
Right.
So after seeing her hit the ground, you are now shot in the neck. What happens next?
I tried to keep myself up, but I couldn't. I fell immediately. I tried to hold put pressure on my neck, but I couldn't lift my arm up for some reason. And I looked down and I realized I got shot in my wrist, but I don't remember getting shot in my wrist. I don't know if it was the adrenaline. I don't know. So it was like real blurry, real cloudy. So I'm thinking, okay, all right, this is it. Is this how I'm gonna die? I'm about to die in this bathroom in his apartment.
Wow.
So the guy walks over to my mom with the gun and was like, this is not real. This is a dream. He put the gun to his head and he killed himself.
Wow. So he actually didn't even realize that he was doing all of this.
Right.
He thought that this was a dream.
Yeah.
And as the moment that he puts the gun to his head, he shoots, he now drops to the ground. What do you and your mom do?
He actually fell on top of my mom.
Wow.
The crazy part. He was like a 6'1", 6'2" guy. He was a real hefty guy, but I don't know how she did it. She's short. She's short. She got up.
Everyone had strength in that moment.
Yeah, everybody. So we actually got the energy and the strength to get up and get out. Walking down the hallway, trotting, running, whatever you want to call it, down the hallway. I was actually proud of my mom for getting up and getting out, because she got shot in her leg. I wouldn't be able to walk. I hop in one leg, man.
But you guys were able to make it out.
Yep.
And you went up those steps right outside of that apartment complex, the very same one that we saw in the video that we also went up when we went back to the apartment complex. And I just remember you telling me how that was your first moment.
Right.
And it was also Mom's.
Right.
We have so much more to talk about, Roderick. We have a lot to talk about. We have so much to talk about when it comes to Mom's first experience, some of the rumors that were spread when this ordeal happened. And it's all on the way. We'll be right back.
He had post-traumatic stress disorder and he was schizophrenic. So with those things, you got your own internal demons fighting.
Coming up on Everyday People, Roderick's mom joins us to reveal more about the gunman who nearly took her and her son's life. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here on Everyday People, and we just sat down with Roderick Buckworth, who gave us this traumatic story of what happened just 6 years ago when him and his mom were attacked in their comfort of their home. At the time, Patricia was just 40 years old. There was only one thing that was on her mind at the time, and that was to make sure that her son survived. They both took me back to the apartment complex where it all began and walked me through the halls. We were able to see the very overwhelming feelings that took over them every step of the way. Let's take a look.
I had only ever seen him actually like one other time when they were moving in. So I really didn't know who he was. We left out. Him and his girlfriend met us right here in the door. I hadn't even actually stepped out into the hallway yet. And he was just, you were in there so loud. I think you were out there talking about me. And I'm like, I don't even know you. Right. He had post-traumatic stress disorder and he was schizophrenic. So with those things, you got your own internal demons fighting. Because I actually saw the gun go from his waist up. I never looked up to see where it was going. But he ended up shooting himself and he landed on top of me. So after him shooting himself, that was just the beginning of it. I'm in front of him. I'm at the top of the stairs telling him to come on because at the time, I didn't know if the shooter was dead or alive. Like I just knew that the energy, when he fell on top of me, the energy was just like gone. But mentally, it's like, you just don't know. You see the scary movies, people come back to life all the time. So, you know, I'm telling him to come on because I don't know what's behind him.
Right. He comes through the door. What was running through your mind at this point?
Please don't kill my son. I felt like I was in a place in life where I had lived what I was supposed to do. I've always thought that my job is just to be his mom. And I was the only one that could be his mom. So at that point, I had already done that job. He has so much more to do.
Every time I see that part, I get teary-eyed because I can only imagine the feeling that overwhelmed this young mother who had so much more life to live, but again, could only think about saving her son. I'll tell you that a mother's love is one that cannot be explained. Here with us now on the couch, sitting next to her son, is Patricia Buckwith. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being courageous and coming on the show.
Thank you, but I don't know that it's courage, but thank you.
I think that it is, and I only say this because a lot of people, no matter how many years have went by, may never be ready to tell their story. And the strength that it takes from both of you to be able to do this is amazing. So yes, it is courage. So I want to know first and foremost, you know, you guys moved outside of Wilmington for what you say was this better life. Explain to me why you made that decision to move.
Simply statistics. Statistics said that by 21, he would be dead. Sorry. That he would be dead or in jail. I couldn't have that, not for my son. Like I said in the piece, you know, my job was just to be his mom. And I was going to be the very best that I could be for him. And it started there with moving. So.
And a lot of people may not understand the depth of your relationship and why you guys are oh so close. So Roderick, if you can, you know, take me back to maybe your earliest memory of you and your mom and the relationship that you guys had so we can really get an understanding of this bond.
I mean, it's like the bond we have now, but it was just being shot made us closer. You know what I'm saying? So before, we was always close. Always. She made sure, you know, I had what I needed. She made sure I did what I wanted, only if I kept my grades good in school.
Most importantly.
Yeah, right? So, like the bond was real close. Like I said, just like it is now. I'm older now, so I can say more things and tell her more things, and you know. But yeah, it was always like that, always.
And you always wanted the best for him.
Absolutely.
Even in this moment of fear and anxiety and all of these things going on, you just wanted the best for him. And simultaneously, he wanted the best for you. You were the only person that actually met the shooter before the incident. Talk to me about that.
So actually it was a friend and myself at our apartment the Friday before the shooting, which was on a Tuesday. I was doing her hair. She's really, really loud. Like she has no inside voice.
Right.
So
I don't either. It's okay.
I mean, even now it's just, but I know her. So we were done with hair. Our ritual was do her hair, go out to eat. On our way out to eat, we met what eventually would be my shooter and his girlfriend in the hallway.
And this was the day before?
This was the Friday before.
The Friday before.
So 3 days before.
Sure.
So he was, something to the fact of, you were in there so loud, I think you were talking about me. And I said to him, I don't even know you.
Right.
So he showed me this plastic laminated card, some type of military card. My friend thanked him for his services, and we went down the hallway and went to go eat. But at dinner, like, we were hard pressed to think about what it was that we were actually talking about, to have him actually approach us. We were actually talking about Roderick's birthday party. He had just turned 19 in May, and he was just like, I want to have this party, and I want to have a party. So we were just talking about his cookout.
Yeah.
So that was the conversation that he thought was about him.
So in the midst of you planning a celebration, you're pondering on this strange moment that happened. You never interacted with this neighbor up until this point.
Nope.
And no one else within the apartment complex. I remember reading articles that said they didn't really interact with him either.
That's correct.
3 days later, you are home. Talk to me about that moment.
So I just remember the day. It was pouring down, raining, thunder and lightning. My pants were soaked from the knees down, just because of the torrential downpour. Came home, took a shower, laid down, and actually had fallen asleep. And then I hear just like a bang, bang, like a real heavy knock. And I'm like, Roderick, and he's like, wasn't me.
Don't
So
blame me.
exactly. And then after that, I hear a knock on the door, and I just hear, Roderick say, who is it? And we just lived in a place where if you didn't call us and tell us that you were coming, that you would never be just in the neighborhood.
Right.
So I was awakened to the loud sounds and the knock.
And this is now the moment, Roderick, where you are in the living room. You know what is going on. The shooter has now broken his way in, and you're running back to that back room. Now, he does recant the part where he says, you said, what's going on? He says, we don't have time to talk about this. And talk to me about that moment of that interaction between the both of you. What were you both doing?
I had a robe on, so I'm getting dressed, and at the time, Roderick says, call 911, he's shooting. And then that's when I'm like, who's shooting? And he's like, I'm old enough to know who it is. So in the middle of calling 911, I'm getting dressed. As Roderick is just getting in the room, I'm like just getting dressed, and he's throwing the dresser in front of the door. And then after that, the series of events happened pretty quickly.
You said you felt his energy leave his body as he fell on top of you right after saying, this is a dream. What did that moment feel like?
It was very hard because I'm someone who believes in energy and very spiritual. So I just felt like his negative energy just kind of like oozed on me. But it also, there was a odd relief knowing that he was gone.
Yeah.
And that he could not come back.
Yeah, yeah. And you were hoping that maybe this was the end of the moment. You guys found some type of strength to get up and make it out the door. You knocked on some neighbors' doors. Did anyone answer?
Roderick did.
Yeah, I was banging on everybody's door downstairs, but ironically, nobody was home. Nobody was home that day. And my mom was just telling me, don't worry about knocking on the doors, we gotta go, we gotta get out.
Yeah.
That's all she was worried about. I was worried about, I need somebody outside to let us go to the hospital. That's what I need.
And when you did get outside, eventually what happened? Who was out there? Who helped?
It was a UPS guy. He just got done delivering a package, and he was about to pull off. And we waved him down. We was telling him to call 911. We've been shot. 2 teenagers was actually walking past, and they actually came back and made sure that we was good. I remember a young lady. She held me up to make sure I did not fall. I didn't pass out or anything like that. She made sure I was good.
And you said you're still in contact with that young lady.
Yep, I thank her every year. Every year on June 10th, I thank her every year. She tell me, "Oh, you don't have to thank. Look, listen, I'm gonna thank you every single year because I mean, if you wasn't there, then that could have been another portion where I could have died.
It definitely brought chills to my arms as I saw, and we both saw, a UPS truck as we were going up those very same steps where you guys went up. Now, I know that the physical scars are gone, but the mental and emotional ones, they're still with you. I want to talk a little bit more about that. Coming up next, we're going to bring on Malia Boone from Delaware Guidance. We'll be right back.
I can't do things normally anymore. Like, I can't go to see fireworks on the 4th of July with my family. I now have a 7-month-old daughter. I gotta explain to her when she get older why I can't go see fireworks yet.
5 years after a gunman broke into his house and nearly killed him and his mother, Roderick is still struggling to cope with what happened. Coming up, a mental health expert from Delaware Guidance will be joining us for some insight. Everyday People will be right back.
Welcome back to Everyday People. We're on the set with Roderick Buckworth and his mom, who just walked off after we got the chance to talk to both of them about that incident that happened 6 years ago. And now I want to talk more about the affect of everything that has happened. While Roderick, your story is unique, this has happened to other individuals before and families. And I'm so glad that I have Malia Boone on from Delaware Guidance to speak more to the idea of mental health and how this can actually affect a family. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank
So
you.
talk to me a little bit about your background and specifically what you do to help families or individuals that have gone through similar things like this.
Sure. I am a licensed professional counselor of mental health, and I also manage a crisis program across the state of Delaware. So we work with youth who have often experienced traumatic incidents, as well as, feeling like overwhelmed, feeling suicidal, feeling sometimes homicidal.
Right.
So we work really closely with kids, trying to figure out how we can help them the best we can. And a big part of that is working with their families, helping them to connect with resources. And it's great to have people in the community who have these kinds of stories of getting through these really tough times and doing well. And it's great to be able to be here with you today, Roderick.
And at the time, he was 19 years old. And
Yeah.
some may say he's an adult because he's not 18, but I
Yeah.
still see that as a child. And
Yeah.
so the effect that a situation can have on the mental, emotional state of a child, what does that look like for people that don't understand?
Sure. Experiencing something like Roderick went through is highly traumatic. So there can be a range of different kinds of traumatic experiences that people can go through. But to experience something where your life was literally almost taken from you, that's the worst in terms of a traumatic experience. So kids that we work with and people in the community who have gone through these things are dealing with things like maybe emotional numbing. Sometimes they're feeling hyper vigilant, like they're always on the lookout for danger. They're sometimes having an exaggerated startle reflex, like the loud noises may kind of get to you. Sometimes you may be experiencing things like nightmares, flashbacks, like you're going back to the time when this happened. People who have pretty significant PTSD, especially those who haven't received treatment or have gone through, ongoing therapies, sometimes will dissociate and may not realize where they are anymore. They think they're back at that time where that traumatic episode occurred, and don't even realize that, they're acting in ways that wouldn't really be normal.
And now, Malia, you're not a psychic. You are speaking to fact and to truth.
Absolutely.
And Roderick, can you agree with her in terms of any of those things that you recognize or have felt since this incident?
Yeah, everything that she just said, actually. With the triggers, she was saying like a real loud noise. It was one time I was working at the toll booth. A car backfired and caught me off guard. Now, a knock at the door, that gets to me. I will not open the door now.
Yeah.
I will not open the door because that's the trigger that, like,
Sure.
it takes me back.
And since then, you know, you were 19 years old at the time, but now you're in your 20s. You've had a child. And I remember in the interview you said that you can't even go see fireworks with her.
Yeah, the fireworks is definitely a trigger, and it's going to be a hard thing to tell my daughter why I can't go yet. But I got a little time to build up the courage to try to do that for her.
Yeah. What would you suggest are some ways that he can work on coping with what he's went through outside of even just therapy?
Right. So of course therapy is always recommended when you've been through something so traumatic. But finding ways to feel safe, reminding yourself that you are currently safe, telling your story just like you're doing now, you know, being able to go back to that story and feel safe to share it with people is really powerful and really healing. Sometimes even just getting involved, you know, volunteering your time and talking to other people about what you've been through so they have a better understanding really helps with the healing process.
And it's crazy that you say that because I actually go to middle schools and high schools and talk about it.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
yes.
And tell my story.
And we have so much to get into about that, which I'm very excited about. Roderick has been able to take this story and just make it an inspiration for us all.
Yeah.
But I really got a question. Sometimes I feel like is it running away from me coping with myself? Because since I take along a lot of middle schools and high schools to tell my story, I'm excited to tell my story because I want them to hear it.
Right.
But when I dig deep down, I'm like, am I running from trying to deal with it myself?
By telling your story?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think that's the way you're coping with it.
Okay.
You know, you're working through it as you're telling your story, and it's really helpful for those other kids too to hear someone young, male, who's been through a hard time, who's able to say like, I struggled. This was hard, and I'm still able to keep going, and I'm getting through it, and some days are hard and some days are easier than others, but we can all survive these things.
Definitely.
And that's powerful.
And he's definitely surviving, not just surviving, but thriving. Thank you so much, Malia, for coming on and sharing your perspective and also the work that you do with Delaware Guidance. I know, Roderick, you know, you were definitely learned a lot from this segment just alone. I know I learned a lot, and I know our viewers will learn so much. So thank you again. We'll be right back.
Coming up, Roderick has turned his traumatic experience into an opportunity to send an important message to the youth in Wilmington. Stick around to find out more. Everyday People will be right back.
Honestly, I don't know what my turning point was. I, started to work, helping my mom back on her feet. Then I started to speak at schools. That might have been the only thing from 19 to 24 where I've been consistent, where I say has developed me as this person I am today and get me to talking about the situation that happened.
Known as L, right? I'm a hip hop artist and a motivational speaker as well. I go to middle schools and high schools and talk about a little situation that I've been through.
I'm not gonna say I was thrown to the wolves and just started speaking about it, but the first time I actually, got up to the class and started talking, it was like I was everywhere. It was like I didn't know how to put my story into a format that they would understand. But then it was like, okay, why are you trying to change for them? They need a real story. And then I started telling my story on what happened. I need them to completely understand that life is not just fun and games. Like I said, I could be in the safety of my own home. You can be in the safety of your own home and not, and experience something crazy. That has gave me a balance from 19 to 24. A lot happened between, I got an award from the NAACP, the Hero Award for saving my mom, but I never thought about it as saving my mom, never. It's my mom, I love her. I did what I had to do. Never thought about it as being a hero.
Guns down, not another body hitting the ground.
Guns down, not another body hitting the ground.
Guns down, not another body hitting the ground.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this hasn't been your first rodeo with gun violence.
Right.
Talk to me about that.
When I was 7, my cousin Aye was killed by her boyfriend, the father of her child. So at that point in time, like, at that age, you don't know what to do. You don't know how to feel. You don't know if your feelings are right or wrong. You don't know whether you should be mad, whether you should cry. I didn't know how to feel. My mom was like, how about you write your feelings down? Okay. Started writing my feelings down on how I felt. That turned into poetry. Then after that turned into music. That turned into me rapping. Then that was my outlet. That was me coping with losing my cousin over gun violence at that point in time at such a young age.
So you were already spreading awareness about gun violence way before this incident happened to you and your mom. And you already had started writing. And I think that's when you got the name Elrod?
Yeah.
So Elrod, with this name and with this poetry, what was the most important message that you were really trying to get people or kids to understand, again, before this incident happened?
Before the incident happened, I actually had a song called Public Service Announcement. I just wanted people to be aware that domestic violence is real, whether if it's a woman hitting a man or a man hitting a woman, because believe, women do hit men. So I wanted them to be aware of all aspects of domestic violence, not even just gun violence, just violence, period. Whether if it was verbal or anything like that, like you never know with a kid, with a child. And then that meant so much to them because it was in rap formation. They understand it more because it was music. That's what they know.
Yes.
So they can pick it up a little faster than if you was just to go to the classroom and just to do slideshows and everything.
Right.
So that meant a lot.
In your interview, you said that it took you some time to really figure out how you wanted to put this story into words to share it with other people. And I remember when the articles first came out and I was reading them, and there was many rumors being spread about what the story actually was. How did that have an effect on whether or not you actually wanted to clear the air?
The rumors were actually like absurd, actually.
What were some of those, by the way?
Yeah, one of them was that it was a love triangle.
Wow.
One of them was a love triangle. They seen me and my mom had the same last name, next door neighbor. They thought, you know.
Yeah.
Another one was it was a drug deal going bad.
Wow.
They thought I was into the streets and the drugs and everything.
And you were a 19-year-old kid running track and college.
In college, doing what I was supposed to do.
Right.
Another one was it was a rap beef. Like it was,
so many ideas.
And so many different aspects and ways, and it was just crazy. So when I was in the hospital, everybody just told me, yo, just stay offline. Just stay offline. Don't read the comments. If you go online, you read the article, you get the courage to, don't read the comments. You can read the article, don't read the comments.
Do you feel like that was the most important advice you could have got at that time?
It made me want to read the comments even more.
Okay.
If somebody don't do something, I'm going to want to
do
go, you know, so I wanted to see what everybody was saying. I wanted to hear what was going on. Because just like my mom said, she couldn't keep that secret away from me that she had that interaction with him the Friday before. She was going to keep it away from me, but she told me, and I'm glad she did. So I'm glad that I was able to see those comments so I could know if somebody was to come to me and say, oh, I heard it was this. I heard, all right, well, you're wrong. I see where you got it from, but you're wrong.
And so you obviously know the real story of what happened. Eventually, you were able to put this into now music, right? And so when you go to these schools and you speak to these students, what are their reactions to all of this?
They're actually surprised. Like I said, they pick it up more because it's the music formation. But because I look like them, when I go to schools, I don't wear this. I go to schools in short sleeve. I have tattoos.
No, you don't wear this in
no.
a suit?
I did it one time to get a reaction out of people to see if their minds would change. But I go to schools in a short sleeve, show my tattoos,
Just
wear a
be
watch,
yourself.
wear the Jordans or whatever the case is, like I normally would, to look like them. And they understand because, like I said, I look just like them.
Right.
I was raised in the same area that they was raised in, and it happened to me. And I wasn't even in Wilmington. I was out in Newark.
Right.
And then my message to them is just imagine if you was out doing some nonsense and being somewhere you wasn't supposed to be. I was in the safety of my own home. You actually want to take a risk to be out there and possibly get shot and not make it home.
And there's so many aspects to gun violence. And again, like you talked about earlier, was the domestic violence. In your situation, we talked about, a specific potential homicide.
Right.
And now you're talking about more so person-to-person violence.
Right.
So What is the biggest takeaway that you want people to take from this situation and what happened to you?
I just want them to open their eyes. I want them to know that they can be themselves. They don't have to fit in with the wrong crowd. I'm a cool guy. I'm with the wrong crowd. That don't make you cool. Being yourself and doing what you gotta do, creating your own lane. That's what make you you. If you want to be in that crowd, fine. That's how you feel as though that's how you gonna get around in life. That's cool, but you just gotta think and you gotta know. So I want them to be themselves. If they want to go to college, go to college. There's nothing wrong with going to college at all. There's nothing wrong with being a straight A student. There's nothing wrong with doing the right thing. So that's what I want every student to take out of it.
Has there ever been a student who's confided in you about their personal life at home, maybe some of the things that they're going through that you can relate to and give advice to them?
Actually, at the end of every single class, auditorium gig I do, I give them my Instagram to let them know if you can't go to your mom or your dad or anybody at home to talk to, if you can't go to your teachers, I will be there, because I wish I would have had someone like me to be there for me if I had someone to talk to, if I needed someone to talk to. So I had plenty of messages of what was going on home, and I had to be that person I told them I was going to be.
And you are definitely doing that. You're not alone in this fight, Roderick. We also have others that are fighting to make sure that children do not have to deal with these traumatic experiences. And if they do, finding ways to help them heal. Coming up next, we'll speak to a superintendent who's going to give us more information about what his school district is doing to help. We'll be right back. And we're back with Everyday People. Not only is Roderick out in the community sharing his amazing story, but he's also making music and doing it in a way that attracts children so that they can understand the importance of gun violence and adverse childhood effects. So I want to now take the time to bring on another guest who's sitting with us, and his name is Darrell Green. He's the superintendent of the Red Clay School District, who's going to speak more about what this school district is doing to make sure that kids do not have to feel the effects of trauma and or finding ways to help them heal. Thank you so much, Darrell, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So this story, I'm sure, is maybe not so unusual to you. I'm sure that you've probably have met kids that have went through, if not the exact thing, but similar situations. What is that like, hearing these stories as a superintendent, and what does the mindset do to you?
So first, I want to thank Roderick, Elrod, for being able to tell his story, because it is one of resilience. And so whenever our children, our communities experience trauma, traumatic experiences, most often, as we heard, it's difficult to tell that story. So every time he tells it, he's actually reliving it. So for him to be resilient enough to share his experiences and open himself up to reliving that is one of redemption, and it's a powerful story to tell. So that's ultimately what we want to do with our children. So we look through it through the lens of adverse childhood experiences. We know that what we experience in our childhood ultimately impacts us as adults. So how do we help our students? How do we help our families? How do we help our community kind of heal? Regardless of what that trauma that they may experience. We do know, as we serve city of Wilmington predominantly, we're experiencing a lot of adverse trauma as a result of community violence, gun violence, and it's coming too frequent and routine. And too often we become numb to that. And so how do we actually allow ourselves to feel in order to heal? And so we work with our staff members, we work with our leadership within our buildings to first have the awareness of the impacts of trauma. And going from that awareness stage to really being sensitive to it, understanding that behavior is a form of communication. So when our students come to school, they may act out in ways that as a result of the trauma that they're experiencing. And rather than for us to be punitive and suspend, how do we look at restorative practices, being sensitive to that trauma and responding in an appropriate way. And then ultimately going from that to being informed. How does that inform our policies? How do we adequately provide the necessary resources to help support them when they're unfortunately experiencing trauma?
Absolutely. If you would have heard a story like Elrod's, or one of the teachers would have heard a story like Elrod, what would be the immediate response or tactic that they would take to help this student?
Well, all too frequently, sometimes we're unconscious to that. and it comes to school, or it may manifest itself in a student acting out, or a student might be displaying behavior that doesn't fit the norm or the expectation that we set. So, through our work and really understanding some of the activities is the brain architecture game, for example, so that our staff members truly understand the impact of trauma on the developing brain in terms of what behaviors manifest itself. You may have a child that may have ADD or ADHD, for example. Trauma exposes itself in the same shape, form, or fashion, right? I can't keep still in class, or I'm withdrawn. So really understanding the signs and symptoms and really being able to foster that relationship, and I think that's the most important thing that we do, is really understanding that you have to have a relationship with each and every child to understand what they're going through. And once you have that understanding, then we know how to appropriately respond.
Absolutely. Governor John Carney, he signed this executive order in 2018. However, was this a large issue in the Red Clay School District prior to him signing this?
Yeah, so fortunate enough, I actually was working with the state. During that time, I was working with the Delaware Department of Education and really helping Delaware become a trauma-informed state. And so it disproportionately impacts Red Clay and our neighboring school districts and our community as a whole. As Elrod indicated, his mom took him out of Wilmington to have a better life, but this situation unfortunately struck them in a peaceful, what was perceived to be a peaceful place. So you really can't predict where trauma is going to happen. Whether it's the opioid epidemic, whether it's the war on drugs, we're seeing that it's disproportionately happening across our state. So for the governor to have the foresight to sign the executive order to really put pen to paper, but more importantly, put his agenda to process to be able to help provide resources to help our communities heal through the necessary supports and services that they need, definitely disproportionately impacts Red Clay.
Roderick was telling me earlier on the show how when he goes to the schools, they really favor to him because of what he looks like. Right. And so is there a reason behind that? Is there a specific demographic of people that are maybe going through such issues and that's also not being addressed?
Well, you can see the trends with poverty. Communities that have high rates of poverty, you see them disproportionately impacted by high rates of community violence. I mean, we deal with it on a daily basis now, unfortunately, in many of our schools. And so they likely relate to Roderick because, I'm gray-haired and I'm an OG, so they don't necessarily think that, the generations who have come before them can actually relate to their current lived experience. So he has that ability to connect with them in a way that, unfortunately, I may not be able to, but I think that's the importance of us creating a bond in a relationship so that he can reach spaces that I unfortunately can't. Right. And I can in turn help provide him with avenues to get resources to continue to tell his story. So I would love the opportunity in my role as superintendent to give him a platform to speak to a lot of our youth who unfortunately are experiencing that trauma on a day-to-day basis, to let him know that there is a story of hope.
Wow, wow, wow. Now, Elrod, I do remember you speaking with our producers and we asked you what would be one thing that could really help in your endeavors, and one of those things was that you wanted to be able to speak and really get your message out. And so Darrell has been open to making that happen, and I think a further conversation will happen later, but very, very excited to see that happen.
Definitely. So again, and I'm one who grew up in a community that was stricken by community violence, and so we often look at those who are the generation right before us. Yes. And a lot of times when your parents or your grandparents tell you stuff, you become like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. But when it's a message that's close to them and someone who they can relate to, it definitely resonates a lot more. So we're definitely going to support him and more importantly, allow him to use that platform to help us, because unfortunately we have too many of our youth who are experiencing the impact and the residual effects of community violence, gun violence, and trauma, and we're losing too many to the streets. Yes. Who are repeating that same pattern. So if his voice is one that can save only a life or multiple lives within our city, then we're going to support him in that effort. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Darrell, for being able to be that connecting factor here in this story for this extraordinary individual's life. Elrod, there's so much more for you, right? And so it doesn't stop here. This is just the beginning. What's one thing that you want to leave our viewers with before we go?
Honestly, just live life
like it's your last day, because you never know when that day can be taken away from you. I was able to get a second chance on life, so I look at it differently now. So just live your life to your fullest, to the best of your advantage.
Absolutely. We have one more segment here on Everyday People. Next up, we're going to be joined by a beautiful performance by Melissa Monago. Coming up next.
Baby, I could use some help, 'cause I lost a
The power of never giving up is real, and Elrod proves that every time that he challenges himself to make the best out of the cards he was dealt. He shows all of us how to make the best out of anything. Closing us out is Melissa Monago of June Divided, playing their stripped down version of their latest EP, title track Body Wars. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, I'm your host, India Sage, and I'll see you guys back here on Everyday People.
till I'm dead, for my heart to catch up to my head. Well, baby, I could use some help, 'cause I lost the war against myself. 'Cause every time I see your face, battle wages on for days. White flags waving in my eyes, I'm still putting up a fight. Well, I'll shake it off with no surrender, 'cause I'm not meant for these body wars. They're tearing up my soul and leaving me torn like a live battleground. Why can't the head and heart just get along now? I didn't know is that winning means I let you go. 'Cause baby, I go down in flames, burning happily. As long as you still know my name, I try to shake it off with no surrender, with no surrender now. In these body wars, they're tearing up my soul and leaving me torn like a live battleground. Why can't the head and heart just get along now? Ooh, 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 ooh. These body wars, they're tearing up my soul and leaving me torn like a live battleground. Why can't the head and heart just get along now? Oh, oh, these body wars, they're tearing up my soul and leaving me torn like a live battleground. Why can't the head and heart just get along now? Like a live battleground. Why can't the head and heart just get along now?
Do you have an extraordinary story to tell? We want to hear it. Please email us at bookings.everydaypeople@gmail.com. You could be our next featured guest on Everyday People. Everyday People is a production of WITN 22, filmed at the historic Grand Opera House. For more information about live shows at the Grand, please visit www.thegrandwilmington.org.